What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So ever since the Switch Pro talk really took off online, especially this year, people have been wondering what some of these Nintendo games would look like in 4K, especially when we get to things like Breath of the Wild. Well, a new video actually went viral online after it showed Breath of the Wild in a new light. Literally, it's using ray tracing. We'll talk about that here today. Also, we're going to be talking about a big sale from Sony, along with a bunch of free titles that you can claim later on this month, one of which is actually a pretty big title from Sony, and Persona 5. There have been a lot of rumors around it going to another platform like the Switch, but now we have new rumors talking about it going to the Xbox. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new to the Spawn Life channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with Outriders. It's a game that I'm kind of like on. I mean, I played the demo. I thought it was okay, but for me, it didn't really stand out that much. But it's going to Game Pass day 1, April 1st. So I guess I'll download it and kind of go a little further with it from there, since we're not buying it necessarily for the upfront $60. But I will give them some credit here. They decided not to go the route of heavy microtransactions in this game. In an interview with Gaming Bolt, the lead director actually sat down and talked a bit about this. We decided to go the old school approach where we are just finishing the game and giving it to the players, not thinking about the microtransactions, game passes, and things like that. At some point, it was easier for us to think about the game that way, just delivering the whole product. We believe players will like that proposal, that they're just buying something. And they go on to say, hey, look, if it takes off and people really enjoy the game, we can explore other things down the road in terms of expansions to it, kind of like what we were used to before, you know, where you get the whole game up front and not hope that the company will deliver or fix a game that was released like what we had with Anthem, which did not work out well at all. So I am happy to see Outriders at least going that route. And like I said, I will at least give the full game a chance, even after playing the demo for a couple of hours here that I wasn't super excited for. We'll see how everything goes, though, April 1st when it drops on Game Pass. Also, here's an accessory I wasn't expecting to be announced for the PlayStation 5. A DVR, specifically you being able to record, I guess, cable TV through your PlayStation 5 onto another box that looks very much like a PlayStation 3. No, seriously, take a look at this here. Has some serious PlayStation 3 vibes, doesn't it? Like the PS3 Slim? Well, that's because this is actually a product that was released back in 2010 and is being rebranded by Buffalo, and it appears that they are using the same molds. This would allow you to use an application on your PlayStation 5 to then record, I guess, just cable TV that you're watching to this box here. It appears that they have doubled the internal storage to 2 terabytes and are now charging $270, this being a product that will be released in Japan only as of now. And I just didn't know that DVRs were still really popular or wanted at all. I feel like a lot of the world has moved on to really on-demand content for watching TV shows or movies, but I guess here we see Buffalo rebranding it and trying to release it, even though Sony's kind of moved away from it themselves in 2019. But hey, I guess there might be a market for it in Japan, and they're going to take a shot at it. Oh, and we had mentioned before that Dying Light 2 would be seeing some sort of update on the 17th. Well, we did get that in the form of like a 3-minute video that was released, mostly them explaining the situation around the game, that it ended up being larger and more time-consuming, I guess, to create what they wanted to do than they were previously expecting, and naturally the issue around remote work and the pandemic set them back a bit. But I do like the communication here in this video, and they showed some more gameplay snippets sort of at the end just to get people excited for it, and then they gave us the 2021 year after that. So we are still waiting for more information from them. I expect to hear more probably in the coming months around that E3 time over the summer. There's Summer Games Fest. There could be something they do alongside of Microsoft, or who knows, maybe with Sony. So there are a lot of possibilities coming up, but at least looks like they are targeting 2021, and at least the project isn't canceled as some people were concerned about. They even had this fun bit where they were reading off different tweets and messages they were being sent. So look out for more Dying Light 2 info, hopefully in the next few months. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Zelda Breath of the Wild. This being played in 8K with ray tracing enabled, and a few other visual mods that I noticed here, but this was being played through Cemu, which is the emulator on PC that people are able to use for Wii U titles, and Breath of the Wild is one of the most popular games to modify. There's like a first-person mode. I think they put it into VR. A lot of things happening here, and the frame rate's also been moved up. I know a lot of videos online show it at 60 frames per second, and seeing Breath of the Wild at 4K, 60 frames per second is it's pretty cool to see. But check this video out here. This was posted up by Digital Dreams, showing a nice kind of runaround of the overall landscape, even going into the woods, by the way, that generally tanks the Switch frame rate. Running through here pretty well at a resolution of 8K. Now, they are using some pretty serious hardware, so this isn't something I would expect even like the next generation Switch to be doing, but having, say, Breath of the Wild at 4K, maybe with ray tracing enabled next generation, is something that I'm sure people would like to see. And from what I could tell with this video here, it does look like they may have turned off some of the cell shading in the game. So I saw some people who weren't too thrilled with the overall look from the art style, but I mean, you can't deny how good Breath of the Wild looks when you start moving things up like resolution and some of the detail settings and ray tracing. The game itself is already a beautiful game, but then you start moving up like that and it looks absolutely incredible. Now, you can try this out for yourself with Cemu. I don't know how well it's going to run unless you have a really nice i7, for example, paired with a 3090, but you could take a shot at it. There are a lot of videos of it running in 4K. It was just very interesting to see 8K pop up, and it just shows the possibilities of what Nintendo could do, maybe alongside of NVIDIA with AI upscaling, going up to a Switch revision, and how some of the older games could benefit from it. I know we're talking about higher frame rates, but Breath of the Wild going to 60 frames at 4K would be impressive, even if it is just upscaled. And I think that's one of the reasons this video got people so excited over the last day or so, and it exploded online and was shared so much, is because there are people now starting to think about that with some of these recent Bloomberg articles. And I mean, even then, going to handheld mode with the nice OLED, yeah, Breath of the Wild is going to be a game we're going to go back to, even if the Pro model, we'll say, quote unquote, releases alongside of Breath of the Wild 2. I would hope that Nintendo would go back and do a patch for something like Breath of the Wild to give it some of the extra bells and whistles that can be taken advantage of with newer hardware. Even if we get all the way to next generation, like, I expect backwards compatibility to be something Nintendo is mindful of here. And if we can get a Breath of the Wild that looks like this, I would say still with more of the cell shading stuff turned on, it could look absolutely incredible. So certainly one game I'll be going back to look at when we do get newer hardware, but check this video out in the meantime. Next up, let's talk about a PlayStation Network sale that is going on right now. This is their Mega March sale. It's going to be running until the last day of March, March 31st. And there are actually quite a few games on here, with the big headlining game appearing to be Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time. We can check out the list here that they posted up on their PlayStation blog, with Assassin's Creed The Ezio Collection, Assassin's Creed Odyssey Deluxe Edition. Then we have Crash Bandicoot 4 there, Control, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot Deluxe Edition. Unfortunately, that's like the $90 version or something, so they cut it down to like $45 to make it look like it's a massive deal. Dying Light's another good one to grab, but seeing Crash Bandicoot 4 drop down to below $40 for the PlayStation 5 version, that's a good pickup there, considering it just recently, of course, went back on sale for the PS5, and it was $60 compared to the Switch's $40 version. So seeing this go on sale and get below $40 is probably a good pickup for the newer Crash game. But the news that a lot of people were talking about was part of that play-at-home initiative that Sony is doing. Remember earlier this month, we talked about how Ratchet and Clank on the PS4 was just made free. You don't even have to have a PlayStation system. You just, if you have your account set up on their website, you can just claim it for later. So maybe you do get a PS5 down the road, you can sign in and these games will already be a part of your account, which is really cool. But check this slide out right here. This is one that Sony posted up, and all of these games are going to be free, like just like how we had with Ratchet and Clank, starting March 25th. And we can see we have Res Infinite, Abzu, The Witness, Enter the Gungeon, Subnautica, Moss, Astrobot, Paper Beast, and Thumper. Those bottom four games, all PlayStation VR titles. So something that I would definitely do is claim those, just in case we do get that PlayStation VR 2, for example, that is more interesting to a lot of people. You can go back and try out what is, I think, one of the best VR games I've ever played, and that is Astrobot. But Sony wasn't done there. Check this one out. Starting April 19th and running all the way to May 14th, you'll be able to claim Horizon Zero Dawn Complete Edition completely free. Like, you can just set this up on your account and you will have it. And the complete edition is awesome to grab. I know it's not an expensive game anyway, but it is a very, very good title from Sony. And I kind of feel like a lot of people have played it, but if you have not and you're grabbing a PS5, this is a good game to get started with. I actually tried it again on my PlayStation 5 pretty recently. Still looks awesome, runs really well on the system. So seeing this here and Sony just saying, hey, here's a bunch of free titles for this play-at-home initiative. They don't even need a PlayStation to necessarily claim, like a bunch of them being VR titles that could come in handy, like I said, down the road, or even now if you have a PlayStation VR and maybe you want to try out something like Paper Beast without, I guess, spending the money to do so. Very, very cool stuff here. And Horizon Zero Dawn being thrown on top is just that little extra cherry, I guess, on top there. But I like the idea that Sony's going with here. Free games. We should do that more often. Next up, let's talk about EA Play on the PC. I had just mentioned this one yesterday when we were going over some of the Game Pass games for Xbox. Hey, what's going on with EA Play on PC? Because it's been kind of radio silent and it seemed like it was delayed, but we didn't really know till when. Turns out you can get it now. It's available right now on PC, and that means that a bunch of EA titles are now just made available on Game Pass on your PC, similar to what happened on the Xbox, where just overnight you went to like recently added and it was like all these EA titles and some very, very good ones in there. We can go over to Microsoft's Xbox blog where they posted up. We're excited to share with you that starting tomorrow, March 18th at 2 p.m. Pacific, Xbox Game Pass PC and Ultimate members will be able to enjoy all the benefits of EA Play on Windows 10, including more than 60 of EA's biggest and best PC games like Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, FIFA 20, Titanfall 2. Everyone needs to try Titanfall 2 on PC if you have not. Very, very good game there. And Need for Speed Heat. I also like that. And I know there's a lot of people who did not try Need for Speed, so definitely check out Heat, as well as titles from some of EA's most popular franchises like Battlefield, Madden NFL, Command & Conquer, and The Sims. But they weren't done there. Starting on day one of EA Play on PC with Game Pass, members can play the new-to-play list title Star Wars Squadrons on PC and console. Remember, we had talked about that before and it was like just console. Well, nope. Looks like it's also showing up here on PC. So exciting stuff, because the one thing we've seen Microsoft kind of have to deal with is this split in their Game Pass library between PC and Xbox, and they've been slowly working to figure that one out. It's not as cut and dry, I think, as a lot of people are assuming it to be, where Microsoft has to account for the Windows Store, making Game Pass work through a bunch of different PC configurations here, and there are, I'm sure, other licensing deals that have to happen through Windows 10 as opposed to just their Xbox. But the more and more they get that like normalized across the board, the better, and getting EA Play on PC was a very large step for them to take. So exciting stuff there. I mean, definitely later on today, start checking out some of the EA games that have now been made available on PC, because there are some very good ones in there. In our last bit of news, let's talk about Persona 5 on the Xbox. This is an interesting one to go over here, because most of us have figured, hey, if Persona 5 is going to go somewhere, it would probably be the Switch and then maybe the PC. Well, unless Sony does have a deal with Atlas and they go, hey, look, you can at least put it on PC for now, much like we saw with Persona 4 Golden. But there are a lot of rumors right now that are starting to blow up online, talking about Persona 5 in some way going to Xbox and even Game Pass possibly day one. Remember, we just saw Octopath Traveler get announced for next week, showing up on Game Pass. So I guess nothing's impossible here with Microsoft and their big checkbook that they're now using. But let's take a look at this tweet here. This was from Ed over at Xbox Era, quote tweeting saying, seems like Yakuza isn't the only popular Sega franchise Microsoft are trying to get into Game Pass, with a picture there of Joker, of course, from Persona 5, with the big Xbox logo right there in the middle. And to go a little further, and then we have Dragon of Dojima saying, I hope Xbox guys get to experience Persona series soon, with Jez Corden from Windows Central doing a little smiley face there. And believe it or not, that smiley face was enough to get article after article written about this whole thing all over the internet. Yes, the idea of Persona 5 Royal, maybe? Persona 5 Strikers, most likely. Persona 4 Golden? Something Persona like that going to the Xbox, it would be pretty big. I mean, Microsoft has been getting more and more aggressive with some of these different Japanese-developed games. I mean, we just talked about Octopath, saw this, massive explosion of Yakuza games show up all over Game Pass now, with Yakuza 6 showing up next week. So why not Persona? I mean, really, if you look at it, Sega and Atlas have been pretty bad about getting Persona onto other platforms unless they truly do have some sort of deal with Sony to leave it as a PlayStation-only game. And then we have the thought of, what if Microsoft really is thinking about buying Sega? They've been struggling recently, and if Microsoft could work out all of the logistics around buying a large Japanese publisher and developer, I kind of think they might actually do that. Would it really be that outlandish for them to buy Sega after they just bought ZeniMax and Bethesda for $7.5 billion? If they could make all of that work, going into Japan, getting a studio and a publisher like Sega and Atlas as well, then certainly all of those Persona games would show up on Game Pass immediately, much like we saw with Bethesda here. Or hey, maybe they're just gonna bankroll a bunch of these Persona games and drop them on Game Pass, and I'm sure Sega would be more than happy to accept some of that Microsoft money. It really comes down to, is Sony really keeping these games on the PlayStation platform with their own deal? Because as soon as it jumps to Xbox, what's stopping it from going to the Switch? Unless Sega's going to ask Nintendo for money, they might want to start thinking about putting that everywhere else they can, and that includes on PC, but we'll see. For now, this is rumor territory, and if I had to pick one game, it would be Persona 5 Strikers going to the Xbox and dropping on the Game Pass, possibly day one, with Microsoft opening up their checkbook once again. And before we go to the comment of the day, let's take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, will Monster Hunter Rise be your first Monster Hunter game? 40% of you said yes, I've never tried one before, and 60% of you said no, I've played a few Monster Hunter games already, and then other comments saying I wasn't gonna get it anyway. This was mostly for people who were interested in Monster Hunter and if they had played one before, because I've noticed that the Switch obviously has brought in a much larger audience than what Nintendo has even had with, say, the 3DS, right? And looking at this, Monster Hunter has continued to grow, and Monster Hunter World brought in a bunch of people, but I am wondering if just the overall Switch install base and how many systems Nintendo's managed to sell here is going to bring in new people to Monster Hunter, which would mean that Monster Hunter Rise could potentially be the most successful Monster Hunter game. And we talked about this before. Could Monster Hunter Rise outsell Monster Hunter World? And a lot of people aren't sure. They're saying no, probably not. I mean, it's possible if Nintendo really has brought in a bunch of new people to Monster Hunter and they decide to try it, it could happen. So we'll see. I was just more curious how many people who have picked up a Switch maybe have not tried some of these core franchises from, say, Capcom. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Infinity Master saying, I was surprised to see this uploaded early by 1 hour. This ET daylight savings thing is really confusing me. We don't change the clock at all during the year where I live. Yeah, let me know in the comments if you were messed up by the daylight savings time thing where I am. We had to jump forward an hour because I do not like daylight savings time at all. Even when we gain an hour in the winter time, I'm not really that happy there either, because I know we're just going to give it back and it just throws off the clocks and you got to change them all around. And if you miss one, like in your car, you get it and you think you're either late or you're really early somewhere. It's the whole thing. And of course, it messes up the upload schedule with Newswave. But yeah, let me know if you were a bit surprised and you're like, oh, daylight savings time, that must have happened. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, it really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today, where there's that video showing Breath of the Wild in 8K with ray tracing and all of the rumors around a new Switch. Let me know down below which game you would pop in first with a 4K Switch. Also, what about that big sale that Sony's having and those free games along with Horizon Zero Dawn Complete Edition being free and Persona 5 on the Xbox? How possible do you think that really is? Maybe we'll run a poll later on today about that topic because it's very interesting. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.